Juniper.
It's 6:01, and I call the August 27th Planning Board meeting to order. We have one item on the agenda tonight. It's a decision. The applicant, Mammoth Acquisition Company, LLC, for a special permit to raise existing buildings comprised of 30,249 square feet and to construct a retail pharmacy of 15,300 square feet and a bank of 3,000 square feet on 3.12 acres, Holmes McGrath being the engineer on record. I'd like to remind the board that although we are voting on a special permit that we voted to come up again, that it's not only the items that we were talking about that made it so we could bring it back, but it's everything that has been spoken about to date on this application. So I just wanted to bring that up so we're all clear on that. We should get the motion on the floor, and then we can discuss it and see how we want to deal with it. So I'd like your sense as to whether you want to read the whole motion, all 4 pages of it, or whether you'd like to abbreviate it by reading the motion and perhaps then skip to the conditions. Would that be satisfactory? Brian?
Yeah.
It's okay if we do it in that manner so we don't end up getting hoarse reading it. Okay, so then I would like somebody to make the motion by reading the motion portion and then the conditions. Somebody do that, please. Paul?
I'll be pleased to do it.
Okay.
Motion that the planning board vote to approve the revised application dated June 4th, 2013 of Mammoth Acquisition Company for a special permit pursuant to section 240-51.a, parentheses 11A, of the zoning bylaw to raise the existing buildings and construct 2 new buildings, one for retail sales and pharmacy use, 15,300 plus or minus square feet, and the other for banking use, 3,000 plus or minus square feet, located at 93 to 105 Davis Straits and 238 Worcester Court, as shown on the Assessors Map 39, Section 15, Parcel 25, lots 000A and 000C, and Map 39, Section 15, Parcel 27, Lot 000, parentheses, the revised application. This continues with findings, and we're skipping those for brevity. Therefore, given the above and the condition to be imposed below, the planning board finds the proposed use will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of this chapter, and that the proposed use will not have adverse effects which overbalance its beneficial effects on either the neighborhood or the town. Conditions. Number 1. Except as modified by condition 4, 5, and 6 below, the decision of the planning board under Article Roman numeral 39, site plan review dated May 15, 2013 for Mammoth Acquisition Company, as a letter to building commissioner and attached hereto, is hereby adopted and made part of this decision in its entirety, including but not limited to plans cited for approval and conditions 1 to 8 imposed herein. Number 2, pursuant to section 240-221 of the zoning bylaw, this special permit shall lapse 2 years from the date it is granted if a substantial use thereof has not sooner commenced except for good cause. Number 3, pursuant to section 240-217 of the zoning bylaw, a performance guarantee in a form suitable to the planning board shall be submitted prior to the issuance of building permits. Number 4, the applicant shall modify the building elevations referenced in condition number 1 above for the proposed CVS building consistent with the elevations entitled CVS/Pharmacy, Falmouth, Massachusetts, prepared by BKA Architects dated May 30th, 2013. Said building elevation plan is attached hereto and made part of this decision, showing a revised southwest elevation with a shed dormer and windows. Number 5, except as modified by condition 6 below, the applicant shall modify the site plans referenced in condition 1 above, consistent with a letter dated July 26, 2013, from Michael B. McGrath, P.E., to the Falmouth Planning Board. Said letter is attached hereto and made part of this decision, and as depicted conceptually on a plan presented to the Planning Board as a public hearing of July 30th, 2013, entitled Concept 7-16, 2013, and said plan attached hereto and made part of this decision. Said revised plan shall be signed and stamped by the professional engineer certifying the zoning notes shown on said Concept 7-16, 2013 plan. Number 6, parking spaces number 31 and 74 to 77 shall be eliminated and maintained as a landscaped area. The applicant shall modify the site plans referencing condition 1 above consistent with this condition. Number 7, curb cut details shall be reviewed and a street opening permit shall be obtained from the Massachusetts DOT prior to work being performed in the state layout. No building permit shall be issued until Mass DOT has approved a street opening permit and a copy submitted to the Planning Board. Number 8, there shall be no outdoor storage of goods or materials of any kind in any form of container or vehicle. Number 9, the plan shall be constructed as approved. Any changes shall be reviewed by the Planning Board to determine if a modification of this decision is necessary. Pursuant to paragraph 240-183B of the zoning bylaw, no permit for full or partial occupancy shall be issued until the Planning Board is satisfied that the conditions of this approval have been met.
Is there a second, please?
I'll second that.
Okay, so it has been moved and seconded, and now I want to open it up for the discussion of the Planning Board. Any comments, please? Ralph?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I would like to modify the conditions. I have 2 changes. So there would be a change to the motion, modification of the motion.
Okay.
And my recommendation is that we would vote on these individually, but obviously that's your call.
I'd prefer to vote on them individually.
The first one would be for an addition to item number 6 in conditions, that 60-degree parking on all back-to-back traffic aisles will be incorporated.
Okay,
That's it.
you're making a motion to
Yeah.
amend.
Right, it's an
The
amendment
original
to the
motion.
motion. Yeah.
Okay, is there a second on Ralph's amendment?
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Okay, so it has been seconded for discussion purposes, so let's discuss this motion to amend. Ralph?
My reason for proposing this is strictly for safety. I consider that the people that use the CVS facility are probably more senior than your average population, and they have to navigate between the aisles to get over to the building. By having 60-degree parking on back-to-back, you will basically have prevent people from backing out of a parking place and having an option of going either way, which I think could be detrimental to the safety of the people that would be transitioning the parking area to the building.
Okay, is there further discussion on Ralph's amendment? Doug?
I just still feel it's too late. I mean, I felt like it was too late last time we talked about this, and that was a couple of weeks ago. And that would require a lot more thought to be put into this. That would mean that it would be one-way traffic, basically, coming in to make use of those parking spaces. Are you proposing that they all go the same way, or is one side going one way and one side going the other way?
one diagonal going one way and the other diagonal going the opposite direction. Not a herringbone situation, but the opposite of that.
Well, I guess that's better, but I still feel, I think I'm opposed to it because I just feel like it's something we should have brought up sooner, so.
Jim?
Ralph has brought this up every time. This is not new.
It was new as of 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Further discussion? Paul?
Yeah, I have concerns with that because one of the problems with on-site traffic is congestion. It exists today, it exists to a certain degree with these improvements. If this becomes one way along the west side of the CVS building, there's no way to get out to Davis Straits and go to Jones Road. And if you have the two-angle parking, I think you're just going to create problems with people not knowing which direction to go in. I think it complicates a little bit this, with all due respect.
Okay, I'm not proposing a one-way. That's not my proposal.
I understand.
Further discussion?
One other thing that influences my decision is they had the ability, and they did succeed in adding 2 feet to that area, so it is improved. It's 2 feet wider than it is now. So that's it.
Okay. I believe they have done what we asked on that parking. They did not go to the diagonal parking, but they did add 2 feet to it, which adds quite a safety factor in my mind for backing, for the larger vehicles that we are currently seeing all over. So I'm satisfied with what they currently have. Are there any further comments? Okay, all in favor of Ralph's amendment, so signify by saying aye. Okay, Ralph, all opposed? Okay, so that amendment is not passed.
Okay.
And Ralph, you had a second amendment to
Right.
propose.
For item number 6, in addition to what's already there, the total number of spaces shall, the total number of parking spaces shall not exceed 85.
And if you're asking that, that's a reduction of how many spaces?
15.
15 spaces.
But actually, if you take into consideration that that item number 6 also eliminates 74, 75, 76, 77, and 31, that's an elimination of 5. So that would be down to 9. That would be down to 95. So it'd be an additional 10
Okay.
elimination.
Okay. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to reduce the number of parking spaces by a total of 15, taking into account those already enumerated in condition 6.
Ralph, where would you eliminate them?
That would be up to the applicant. If we had gone
I'm
to
just wondering what
15,
the impact would be.
you know, I'm not going to design it for him. I'm just going to say I'm proposing that the total number of spaces be reduced to what is required and what was recommended by the Cape Cod Commission.
Okay. Is there further discussion on that reduction in parking spaces? Doug, you look puzzled. You want a little more time?
I'm just trying to think of
Where it could be
what
done?
would we gain by that.
Mhm. My feeling is that I believe it would be difficult to reduce the parking spaces by another 10 when I'm looking at what's already proposed here, because one of the complaints about the current CVS is there's too little parking. Not only was it the complaint of the width of the aisle, which they've remedied in this case with the back-to-back parking, but that there are too few parking spaces, especially during the summer, not necessarily during the winter. So I think I would not like to see the spaces reduced further. Are there further questions, or further comments? Okay.
I just have a
Oh,
question. Trying to understand why we're approving a lot more than is needed. and this is already a congested site. What if we just made the parking spaces wider? I mean, that is something that could be approved tonight, and we could reduce some of the parking spaces, and it would be a less congested site. Not realigning them, just making it easier to get in and out.
The way I watch Drivers Park, they're doing that anyway.
I know, what we're trying to do is, you know, I think the intention is to find something we can approve.
Well, it's not, we haven't taken a vote on this,
No.
on his amendment, to know whether we want to approve it or not.
But I understand Ralph's point. Why are we putting so much parking in a really congested site and making it, I mean, we're gonna hear later on about the site, making it a little bit easier to get in and out, but sounds reasonable to me.
Paul, you had a comment.
I'm not sure we should be increasing the width of the spaces, because this is a standard design. It's similar to what's over in CVS, in Stop and Shop, and there is ample width there. And the applicant has widened the space between parking, another, I think, 2 feet. So I think this is a typical design, but he's modified it to give us more room. So I'd be in favor of not widening the spaces at this time.
Ralph?
Yeah, I think that the design, the current design is correct as far as width of the parking spaces. My concern is that people will park there and use other facilities and use it as like a municipal parking lot, and they won't be using the facility. They might park there and stay there all day long and go to the Island Queen or something else, you know? I mean, if you have more spaces than are required, it just invites people using it for something other than what it's proposed for.
Okay, further comments? Okay, all in favor of Ralph's amendment to reduce the number of parking spaces by 15, a total of 15, taking into account those that are enumerated currently in number 6.
So actually, the motion was not to exceed 85.
Okay, not to exceed 85, sorry.
Mhm.
All in favor? All opposed? Okay, 2 in favor, 4 opposed. Further discussion of these conditions? Or anything about it? Paul?
Yeah, I'd like to modify condition number 7, which refers to the Massachusetts DOT work being performed. I'd like to add a phrase before that particular one on there to emphasize the need to coordinate these activities. We had discussion that the applicant is intending to coordinate it, but these drawings here refer to a town layout of 1955, does not even reference the state highway program. I looked at the state highway 100% design drawings today at the engineering office, and they clearly have incorporated most of the changes that the applicant has made on site, landscaping and things like that. So it's far more complete from their perspective, and I understand they're bidding it, they're in the bidding process now. So I would like to make reference to the fact that it's important to coordinate the activities with the state, even though that is a commitment that the applicant has made. So I would like to add the following phrase as a motion. The applicant shall coordinate all activities with the Massachusetts Department of Transportation Highway Division and the Town of Falmouth Department of Public Works due to the concurrent highway improvements that are scheduled at the same time as the demolition and construction of the buildings on the site to minimize disruption of these activities to the residents of the town. And I would suggest putting that at the beginning of 7 and keeping the second portion the same.
Okay. I presume that you will, if we pass that, you will provide that language to Brian to add in. Okay. You keep it there for now. Okay. Do I have a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Now, discussion on Paul's amendment to number 7.
I think it makes sense.
So do I. Because there are major revisions going on in that, to that intersection, and this is good segment there, so I think
What
it does make
prompted it,
sense.
if a contractor gets this and doesn't see the reference to the state project, he may not have to abide by it. So I think it's what we're trying to do is ensure that the documents provided to the contractor for Mammoth acquisition
Yeah,
make reference to that, so he knows clearly he has to coordinate those
absolutely. You're
activities.
protecting Mammoth as
He
well
or she-
as,
He or she.
so, further discussion on that amendment.
I agree with it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Any further discussion or amendments on
Just some comments.
comments? Fine, sure.
What I'm going to pass down, I have a copy for each end of the table, having to do with Section D, the impact on the neighborhood visual character. And I'd like you to take a look at what I've walked around and taken photographs of the entire area between Dillingham or Spring Bars Road.
Whoa. Point of order, it should be information that is already in your
Okay.
record, nothing new.
We can't take anything new into account.
And the hearing is
so-
closed.
Okay, well, this was part of my discussion and comments before.
If you're passing out information and the hearing is closed, is my recommendation to the board. If you want to discuss the motion,
Okay.
I think you're safer doing that, Bob.
Okay. Well, okay, so I'll just read my comments then. From the onset of these proceedings, I reminded this board of the previous use of this parcel, how the current use is of greater intensity than the previous use, and that the current configuration is riddled with problems. It was my sincere hope that the acquisition of more space would alleviate these problems. However, Mammoth's solution was to enlarge the CVS building and add an additional building with another drive-through, which creates an even more intense use of this property. As stated in 240-216, the special permit granting authority shall grant a special permit only upon its written determination that the proposed use will not have adverse effects which overbalance its beneficial effects on either the neighborhood or the town. And we heard public testimony several times about the adverse effects that the current CVS actually has. I would like to remind the board that we rejected a proposal to add a Dunkin' Donuts to a gas station with a drive-through on Davis Straits by reason of its intensity of use, delivery problems, and traffic flow on the property. I would also like to bring to the attention of the board that there are no other property in Falmouth that has 2 drive-through service windows in such close proximity to others. 2 other board members have also used the adjective convoluted to describe the parking and traffic flow on this property. The definition of convoluted is very complicated and difficult to understand, involved, intricate. Antonyms for convoluted include non-complex, plain, simple, and uncomplicated. With the amount of space, I just can't understand why this plan can't be better. I've sat down at my drafting table with this with tissue paper over, and I've come up with several different ways. And I still have problems with the entrance off of Davis Straits, the delivery trucks coming in, the intersections of the 2 drive-through window exits onto that road in between the 2 buildings. And my criticism of the visual character remains the same. If you walk around that neighborhood and you look at all the different buildings, the only building that isn't in character with that section of town is the CVS building and the proposed building that they plan to build. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have further comments?
Well, you know, as far as the, there's going to be 2 buildings on this property, but they're also eliminating 4 other business buildings, which are seriously underused and have been for many years. And to me, it's a detriment to the village. I know I've heard a lot of comments from people that don't want to see that stuff go, but I don't understand it, because I've seen so many businesses fail in there just because of the arrangement. And it seems like any business that's going to go into that existing type of space is going to have a tough battle to bring people in. So again, I think it's an improvement. I think the traffic is an improvement with the exit onto Worcester Court. And I'm still in favor of it. I understand it's not perfect, but I think it is an improvement.
Further comments? Bob?
I have no problem with the 2 businesses going on there. My whole problem has been the way this is designed here. And there are other, I've gone to other sites around town that show a much better configuration for this type of thing that would fit in the space, wouldn't go in the public use area. It's all this stuff that, with all these arrows coming in around through this wrapping around, it's just way too convoluted. These satellite parking lots, if you look at other places in town, other banks that have drive-throughs, it's nothing like that. It's not this difficult. It shouldn't be this difficult.
Ralph, did you have a comment?
I do. In the 12 years I've been on the planning board, I think this is just about as tough a decision as I've ever been involved in. I have no idea how the board's going to vote tonight. I find I've spent a lot of time going over this from the beginning of our deliberations, and I was worried about the possibility of conflict between the site plan review that we did first and then the special permit which we're entertaining tonight. The special permit trumps the site plan review every time. Every single time. There's one sentence in 24016, the decision, which I think is absolutely essential in determining whether or not to grant a special permit in this case. And I'd like to read it just for the benefit of the public and the audience and also the planning board. And Bob has already mentioned it. And it talks about the proposed use will not have adverse effects which overbalance the beneficial effects on either the neighborhood or the town in view of the particular characteristics of the site. Now, items A through J are things that we're supposed to consider. Only one of them, G, talks about the effect, which was in the opening paragraph, which talks to us and says to us that we have to weigh the adverse effects against the beneficial effects. And in G, the effect, it says that the effect on the proposed project on the adequacy or supply of affordable housing. So it's not appropriate here. So it doesn't make any sense in this case. So you go back to that sentence. And I looked up the definition of effects, and it's like, it's, you know, what influences, what adverse influences may overbalance the adverse beneficial influences. And so I'm trying to determine in my own mind, what is this sentence telling me about special permits? So I looked at, okay, what are the adverse effects or benefits of this, or influences? What are the adverse effects or influences of this particular proposal in regards to its use? And there are a few still questionable minor adverse effects that have been raised here tonight. But then you go to the other end of the sentence where you're talking about the beneficial effects or the beneficial influence and in regards to its use. And I couldn't come up with any. I could not come up with anything that's beneficial here to the town or to the neighborhood, which is what it says we're supposed to consider. You have banks across the street and diagonally across the street from this proposal. You have you have a pharmacy diagonally across the street from this proposal. Probably the majority of the things that are offered for sale in a CVS are available on that corner already. Most of them, except for produce, would be in the Stop and Shop. I can't find anything that is beneficial to the town or the neighborhood by almost tripling the size of the CVS and adding another bank. And the reason I'm saying that is because the only benefit that I see would be to the stockholders and the owners of those two institutions. I see no direct benefit, substantial, direct, and recognizable benefit to the town or to the neighborhood. Now, you might say, and I asked myself this question, if you add these two facilities, will you be benefiting the town by increasing the availability of what they offer to the town? And would it be lowering the cost to the people in the town because we're offering this in this particular site? And my conclusion is absolutely not. It wouldn't influence the cost of any product offered by either of these organizations to the town or to the neighborhood. So I just want you to know, and I want the public to know, and I want the applicant to know how I feel about this and why I'm going to vote the way I am. It's not an easy decision for any of us to make here tonight, but when I read that sentence and talk about the adverse effects overbalancing the beneficial effects, and I can't come up with any beneficial effects, all I need is some minor adverse effects, and I can't vote for it. And that's my position.
Doug?
So the major good effect that I feel will come of this is it's a redevelopment. Whenever you have property that's underused in a business area, it's a detriment to the town. And that property that's been sitting there for a long time, very underused, I feel is a detriment. And I feel redevelopment in and of itself is an improvement. When you have your town, and an extreme example would be not in our town, we don't really have extreme poverty areas, we're very lucky. But if you would look at some other towns that are really hurting, and right now I think Yarmouth is a good example of a town that really wants to do a lot of redevelopment, and they're kind of stymied because they've been a little overdeveloped, and now they've got a lot of kind of underused properties that are sort of going to waste. If we fall behind a curve and we become a less attractive community for some reason, and we have too many of these underused properties, we're going to find ourselves in a bad spot. I'm not saying we're there now, we're not up against a wall and not desperate for redevelopment. It's something we have to guard against. And this is a permanent change to this area, so it is something we have to really consider strongly. But it's been sitting like it is for quite a long time. And I don't know what else is going to come along and redevelop that odd and unusual long parcel. The way it's developed now with, 4 different buildings that don't seem to attract much traffic, I don't know how you'd really change that in a good way. I guess there would have to be some serious thought given to it, and we don't have time for that right this minute. But I think that is the benefit to the town, is the fact that a private investor is willing to redevelop a part of our town which is not attracting much business right now. So that's my point about it. That's the only advantage I see to it.
I agree with Doug that redevelopment is important, but redevelopment for redevelopment's sake, I don't think is in the best interest of the town. And you did say that we're going to be living with this for a long time.
True.
We've been living with the current CVS for a long time now, and we've seen the problems with that, the complaints, the neighbors coming in and speaking before us. And I just want to get this right, and to me, this plan just isn't right. As I've said before, the problems I see with it have not been resolved, and as much as I would like to see this go forward, I can't under this configuration.
Okay. Ralph, you asked for beneficial comments.
No, I didn't ask for them, I just said I don't have any.
No, I understand, but by virtue of that, you're asking for people to give you some beneficial comments, so I'm going to do so.
Sure, go ahead.
The landscaping as proposed is infinitely much better than what is currently there. There are going to be raised berms. It will be a lovely landscape property from what was proposed to us. There is quite a lot more green space, which will be planted, and I believe from prior performance of CVS kept up. With the elimination of the parking spaces 74 through 77, that will all be a green island in there, which currently doesn't really exist. So you're going to have a lot more landscaping, a lot more greenscape throughout than what we had before. What I'm seeing here is, I believe, a better traffic pattern than does currently exist. With the widening of the aisles, that will be better and more beneficial. I believe from the entrance on Davis Straits, the fact that you can go straight through to Worcester Park, or Worcester Court, is also a beneficial thing from the way they had it before that was convoluted. People are concerned about that being a straight shot. I think it would have been dangerous if it had not been changed to the way it is now. The change that they put in from 2 drive-up windows to 1, well, that's currently as it is, and I'm glad they put it back to 1. I think 2 would have been overkill. So these are the things that I find that are more beneficial than what we currently have now. The properties, too, that are there now have not been kept up well. And my assumption is that both CVS, you shouldn't assume things, that both CVS and the bank, because it is to their benefit to look good, will keep the properties up, well landscaped, well kept. So these I find as beneficial. The other thing that I find as beneficial is that the current CVS, the way it is used, is too small. There's inadequate parking. The store itself is too small. They don't have storage. They have all kinds of extraneous storage containers and vehicles to be able to serve their storage needs. They've increased the size of the building to be able to accommodate their storage needs, and I find that more beneficial than what currently exists. I think that's the best of my enumeration on that. I'm not sure that I would find it superior over what currently exists on nearby properties with retail uses. I'm not sure that I agree with that statement under D, but it is superior, I believe, to what currently exists now on the site. Jim?
That was, I didn't know if it was appropriate to talk about the language in D, but I have I wonder if that could be reworded and make it more in harmony, and some of the other language here, not really calling it superior, to be in harmony with the proposed use and not more detrimental. I see it as a trade-off.
A wash.
A wash, but not, I don't use the word superior. I don't know if that can be modified.
Yeah.
Can we modify the language in D? We were talking about conditions, but the board finds the proposed conditions superior over what currently exists on the nearby lot. We don't have to find it superior. We have to find it in harmony and adequate. Is that correct?
1 moment, please.
Yes.
You want to the board finds proposed to be superior to what currently exists. So you want to eliminate the words on other nearby parcels with retail uses? Is that what you said?
Well, the word superior. Do we have to find it superior, or do we find it's adequate and in harmony?
You could simply state the board finds proposed conditions to be adequate.
I'd rather have it be adequate than superior. That's the way I feel about it.
Do we need to take a vote?
You would need some form of
That's
motion
what I
and
would
vote.
think.
I'd like to make a motion, we find it to be adequate, not superior.
Which paragraph?
No, D, on page 2.
Last
Impact-
sentence on D.
It's just modifying what we've already been discussing and making it, and softening it a little bit.
So what would it say? The board finds the proposed project is adequate
And
and
in harmony.
in harmony.
With what currently exists.
In harmony with the intention of the bylaw, too. That's what D is. I mean, if I'm reading 24216, clearly, there's a preamble there, it doesn't use the word superior, and it said we have to find the adequacy, and all of a sudden we're saying superior, and that's what I'm not.
Okay, so Jim, you'd like that sentence to read, and your motion reflects this: the board finds the proposed
Adequate and
conditions
harmony.
to be adequate and in harmony with what currently exists on other nearby parcels with retail uses.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second for that motion?
Yeah, I'll second that.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been seconded. Is there discussion on that, on the motion? Okay, all in favor of Jim's amendment, so signify aye.
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 Okay, so all 6 of us are in favor of that amendment to the language. Is there further discussion? Ralph?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to both Doug and your comments. Doug, I totally agree that redevelopment is important, absolutely. But I would, and also Pat, I think that what you spoke about were modifications to the existing, to the initial proposal, and those are not beneficial effects to the town. Those are simply modifications to what was proposed to us initially. I would like to refer you back to the paragraph, and we're talking about proposed use of this, okay? And the use that I am looking at is a larger CVS, which is looking for a bigger market share, and another bank, which is looking for additional market share, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that where it's proposed and in the proximity to similar facilities extremely close to this intersection, that there's no benefit to the neighborhood or the town.
I guess I can't argue that. That wasn't, I agree with that part of it. It's just another retail use.
Okay, is there further discussion on this motion?
Just, Jim's motion?
No.
No. Just a final comment from me is that, like Ralph said, this is a very difficult decision. I've spent an inordinate amount of time going over the plans, walking that neighborhood, going through the building. I mean, I've been like a ghost out there Sunday mornings before all the traffic goes out there. This has not been a decision that I will make lightly. I have been up nights. I'll think of something, I'll go downstairs and have the plans down there. I've been going through the things that we're charged with making a decision basing those on them. So I just wanted to make sure that people know that this is not just some arbitrary or just whimsical decision that I'm making. That this has come with a lot of thought, and a lot of head scratching, a lot of time.
I appreciate that, Bob, and I think, we all have struggled with this in our own ways. Jim?
I've had a difficult time with this as well. I've had a difficult time with the whole process, and I've been trying to figure out, one of the most difficult things I reflected on was, some of the design and architecture of the building, and when we heard the applicant say that the design review committee approved it, but there was no minutes or notes of anything, I'm just wondering, we might, I'm listening to what Bob is saying and our designs and the things. I think we've taken the changes in our town far too casually, and going forward, I would like to start, making sure the design review committee at least provides notes and recommendations of what we're doing on, because the applicant said it's already been reviewed on the design, but they didn't have any notes or minutes from it, so it's like, almost like it's a rubber stamp until it gets to this. I think Bob's brought up, and all of us have brought up some really important things about the future of our town. And I think we need to be careful going forward and not just blow these things through. And if there is a time for a design review and the public comment on the way the buildings look on important structures, it needs to happen. And, our role here is somewhat limited, but I think as an overall town, we need to do a better job on it. So that's just my general comments.
Doug?
And to add to that, to reflect back on when we were looking for input from other boards, and the historic committee that looked at this said that they didn't have any problem with the demolition, and there was very little comment. And then to read just, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, editorial in the paper mentioning that the house to be torn down had no comment from the historic district people, or which, honestly, I don't remember which board it was from, but it was a historic recommendation was that it was okay to demolition, no significance. And to find out later that that was the Davis house, was Davis Trace was named after, let me think that there was not a lot of thought given to that. And we're taking these recommendations seriously when we make our initial decisions. And when we make our initial decisions, we're leaning toward a direction which leads the developer to work hard and put more effort into the thing. And we get this ball rolling, and we lead them to think that it's in their interest to continue on. Where maybe if we had more initial input from these outlying boards that was something of substantial, get our attention, maybe we wouldn't go so quickly.
I'm hearing agony over our decision.
Well,
And we really need to be thinking about what's right here in the decision.
It's true, and also, it's just our final comments.
Yeah, I understand their final comments.
It's
And what
not
I'm
easy for
hearing
Bob
is-
to make this decision.
Right.
It's also not easy for me to make this decision
Right.
when all the public comment really has been negative towards this.
Mhm.
So it's definitely not easy.
Does anybody wish to comment further, or
Yeah,
is it time? Yes, Paul.
I did not vote on the first go-around last time because I recused myself. But I had serious problems, particularly with the internal traffic. The first plan we came up with after the special permit application was a vast improvement by the traffic engineer who straightened out certain areas, changed the two-way traffic between buildings, and did a number of things that is an improvement. I think this is a development that's important. If I were doing it, I probably wouldn't squeeze two buildings on the site, but that's up to the applicant. I think he's made effort to do landscaping and some effort on the architecture. But the internal traffic is better than it ever was, and I think we need to move forward on this. Vote.
Everybody ready to vote at this point? Okay, it has been moved and seconded, and we have the one amendment on D that was approved. So all in favor of the motion as amended?
What's the, when you repeat the motion?
The-
Oh, the original motion, okay.
The original motion is reading that and the conditions, as you read that, Paul, and then,
I want to make sure that's the motion we're referring to.
yes, and D is the clause that was amended.
And you also have a change for condition 7, the app.
I'm sorry, yes, I didn't write that down.
The
Thank you,
applicants
Brian.
coordinate all
Paul's
activities.
amendment to condition 7, too. There was
Right.
long to coordinate with the highway department. So, the motion and the two amendments reflecting on the original motion, all in favor of that, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, we've got 3, 4. And opposed? So it's 2 to 4. So it has to be a supermajority, so it does fail.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
All right.
Richard's not here, did it again. I didn't realize when you say vote.